Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Egan. I'm the Director of COVID Workplace Safety for the state of Michigan, as well as the Deputy Director for Labor within Michigan's Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. Today, we're joining our friends and folks up in northern Marquette area for Northern Michigan University at the end of our college campus webinar series, where we're really just trying to engage the public around the college campuses so that we can share and pass along some information that you need to make sure that we can get open and stay open. We will do about half of the presentation, or about half of our time today will be a presentation that we'll run through in about a half hour or so. And then we'll stay on for another half hour or so for questions and answers. And you can submit questions while we're going through the presentation at any time through the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen, and feel free to submit those, and we'll do our best to get through as many as we can. We really wanted to take some time around the state of Michigan to focus in on college towns, not because of anything too particular. We know businesses across the state of Michigan have been opening in the face of COVID, certainly in regions 6 and 8, which includes the Upper Peninsula. You've been open for quite a while, but college does create a unique set of circumstances, as you're all familiar with. We have a large population of students coming back to a campus from all over the region, the state, and perhaps the world that we have to deal with, and make sure that we're doing things to do our part to get open and stay open. I can tell you we've been in discussions across the state of Michigan, including Northern Michigan University, on plans that they have to control the things that they can on the campus setting, including classrooms, testing, quarantine, student behaviors, and otherwise. But all of us in that extended community, when students are going off campus, we have a role to play to make sure that we're helping contain the spread of COVID. These unique challenges create a situation where businesses need to prepare a little bit differently than you would for just in your normal area where we're not going to have those types of influxes. And we have to really fight this urge that we all have to become complacent as we're trying to contain COVID. We've been battling the COVID crisis in the state of Michigan and around the world for quite some time now. And I know that many are getting tired, but we have to keep pushing forward because we are going to continue to fight COVID for the foreseeable future. And we have to do that together. And we also need your help today to push this message out. So you're choosing to be with us today, and it's wonderful that you're here, and we hope to get some good questions and some spirited discussion around the things that we can be doing to fight COVID. But there are many that aren't with us. So please engage through your chambers, through your local groups, or just around your area to make sure that this message is getting out there and getting delivered, because any outbreak of COVID is going to have an impact on all of us. So we all have to really be moving forward together as we deal with this. When we all have a role to play. So when we talk through things today, we want you, and we all need to think beyond what we have to do, which are some of the things that we'll talk about today, but also what we can do. What's that next thing that we can do to contain COVID in our communities, and challenge us all to take ownership of the things we can control, so that we can push forward toward, zero complaints, zero citations, and zero transmission to the best that we can. And we've expanded the discussion. If you've been with me on some of these before, some of the information you're going to see is going to be very similar, but we also have our friends today, Kevin Selmeyer, the fire marshal, to talk about some of those capacity and other issues, and Barb Sebastian from the Liquor Control Commission to talk about some of those regulations that you've seen and are becoming aware of there. And do not forget about the power of local action. Public health departments in Michigan have a lot of authority to go beyond what the executive orders are requiring or what DHHS has put out. And we know in some communities, just passing this along if it makes sense, in East Lansing, as well as the Washtenaw County Public Health Departments, have put out regulations to lower that outdoor gathering size. So for the state of Michigan and in region 6 and 8, it's larger. There's a limitation on outdoor gatherings, provided you can maintain that social distance. East Lansing and around Ann Arbor have lowered those to 20 or 25 to try to corral some of those things that are beyond the control of the workplace or even on the campus to make sure that we're containing COVID. Some local communities have put in place ordinances to help with some of these things. And one community in particular has a known congregation point. And in that community, it's like a lot that's just vacant that for some reason is a congregation point for folks over the weekends that they've hired their own security to try to break up crowds there. So don't miss out on that part, that there's a lot that you can do at the local level as well to help really reinforce these behaviors. And as businesses, there are things that you absolutely need to be doing to make sure that you're doing your part to contain COVID and are complying with the obligations of the executive orders. And among those include making sure that you have a preparedness and response plan in place in your business to deal with COVID. Make sure you're conducting those daily health screenings of your employees as they're coming into work that are required. Make sure that all of your employees are wearing masks to the extent that they're required to do so, and that customers coming in are wearing masks as well. Make sure you're following those limitations on size and congregation in your workplace, and then posting those signs and notices as you're required to do to inform the public of the pieces that the role that they play. And make sure you close off those areas that you're supposed to, like the waiting areas inside your restaurant, having customers wait outdoors. And all of these things that we're doing from the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity and across the state of Michigan are really designed for one thing, and that's to make sure that as we move forward with COVID, that we're working to get open and stay open. We talk about that on every webinar we do, that our goal here is really to get open and stay open. A lot of businesses are just getting by. There are a lot of businesses in Michigan that are still hoping to get open, and we all have a role to play to make sure that we're keeping our numbers down in a way that really reinforces that concept. And in Michigan, as you all know, we're just shy of about 95,000 confirmed cases. That includes about 195 in Marquette County. And as you know, the Upper Peninsula recently went through a very quick spike from where they were trending at that low risk, low transmission sector to very high in a very short amount of time. And that's just a reminder of how quickly, if we're not doing our part, COVID can kind of take over our communities. Since then, the trend lines for the Upper Peninsula and Marquette County are moving back toward that low risk, but they're still in that medium to high risk category where, you know, just a few weddings or a few receptions or a few parties or a business having too many people inside can really start to ramp those numbers up again. And we're seeing those cases by age that you can see here on the screen. The largest number is in that 20 to 29 age group, which are prime college age groups, right? And that's where we're seeing a lot of spread across the state of Michigan, and why it's so important that we're reinforcing those behaviors that the colleges are putting out there that the students need to abide by. And we have to reinforce. So I always talk about, we have a 24/7 news cycle. So there's a lot of news about COVID. There's a lot of noise that we're all trying to filter through, but a few things have been static through this whole crisis. And that's the need for social distancing, practicing good hygiene, and face coverings when we can't maintain that social distancing, because this virus is primarily spread through large respiratory droplets that we expel from our bodies when we talk, certainly when we cough or sneeze, when we sing or yell, and when we're in close proximity. And if we're maintaining that social distance, it allows gravity to take care of business and take a lot of that virus down to the ground and out of harm's way as far as contaminating the person that's close to us. But that also puts it on surfaces, which is why that hygiene is so critical to making sure that we're not contaminating ourselves when we touch something and then touch our eyes, nose, or mouth. And then if we cannot maintain that social distance, wearing that face covering. Some of the science tells us that these masks, if we're both wearing them, can cut transmission by as much as 70% between two people. So it's critical that we're doing these things. And about 40% or so of the people spreading COVID are asymptomatic, meaning they're carrying the virus, but they will never get sick. And then another significant percentage are pre-symptomatic, so they feel fine. So we have a lot of people out in our community that can pass this thing around and never know or not feel like they have COVID at all, which makes wearing these face coverings so much more critical. And as you can see from the chart here, our lowest, practically no risk of transmission was during the stay home, stay safe order, which is why we saw our cases in Michigan drop so quickly, because we're practicing the ultimate social distancing, and we're not really engaging. We're still at our lowest point when we're both wearing face coverings and maintaining that 6 feet of social distance. And then we're still very low when we're both wearing masks, even if we're kind of invading that 6 feet of social distance. And all of the rules, all the executive orders that we talk about, if you just look at them through that lens of how this thing is spreading with that social distance, the hygiene, and the face coverings, they really start to make sense on what we're trying to accomplish to help contain COVID. And that helps you understand your role in making sure that in your workplace, in your business, outside that door for people waiting, what we're trying to accomplish with these rules. So keep that in mind as we roll through all of this discussion. So to reopen and operate safely in Michigan, it's critical that you're following the executive orders, you're making a good faith effort to adhere to the best of your ability, you're training employees on health and safety practices, and you're pushing into that, not just what I have to do, but what can I do to help contain COVID. And you can certainly learn more at Michigan.gov COVIDWorkplaceSafety. We'll touch more on that website and the resources there in a minute. And then always check that Michigan.gov MI Safe Start site on the phased approach to reopening and re-engagement and other tools that are there for you to make sure that we do this well. And when we talk through a lot of these things, there are engineering controls. Those are more permanent fixes or changes that you're making to your workplace that don't rely on human behavior. So those are those physical barriers, ventilation changes, things like that to make sure that you're containing COVID, but they don't require an act by an individual. There are other steps that you can take to keep customers and workers safe that are administrative controls. And those are things that you put in place through management policies or operationally, but they rely on some part of human behavior to make sure they're working correctly. And among those are access controls. So I'm going to talk more in a minute about the health screening protocols and things that you can do for that. But the first and foremost thing that you can do to keep your workplace safe is to keep the virus right out of there, eliminate that hazard altogether, which is why we're having requiring businesses to do this health screening. And also, you'll want to think about access controls as it relates to customers coming in your door. How are they getting in there? How often are they getting in there? And who? So that's why those sign postings, don't come in if you're sick, wear the face coverings, those types of things to deal with those access controls. And then distancing, making sure that your tables or however you lay out your workplace, you're maintaining as much distance as possible, 6 feet of social distancing or more, and those types of tools. Sanitation, making sure you've implemented and have good cleaning protocols. And that'll be daily, that'll be after a customer leaves, and that'll be when you may have a positive COVID a case in your workplace to do that deep cleaning to get rid of that virus. Implementing hygiene protocols for your employees that may include hand sanitizer or just more frequent trips to the break area or the wash station to make sure they're washing their hands. Those PPE protocols, making sure that you're getting those cloth face coverings to employees and requiring customers to wear those so you can cut down on that transmission. And then critically, what you're going to do if you have a positive case, and that will include notifying the local public health as well as employees that may have been exposed. And when we say may have been exposed, that is those employees that are working in the same area that may have had close contact, and that's defined as within 6 feet of the positive employee for 15 minutes or more. And I was talking with a doctor today that reminded me that that 15 minutes or more is a cumulative total. It's not just at that one time, because so keep that in mind as you're trying to identify, contact trace with your employees, and what you'll do with that positive case, which may include that last bullet point, facility closures, to make sure that you have time to do that deep cleaning to make sure the virus is clear. So for bars and restaurants specifically, this is one of the great tools that you can find on that Michigan Workplace Safety, COVID Workplace Safety website. And this will run through some of those high level parameters that you need to be complying with as it relates to containing COVID.
For food service employees and their employers, there are new ways to work safely to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. Designate one or more worksite supervisors to implement, monitor, and report on the COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. Develop daily entry screening protocol for employees and contractors. Display a door or sidewalk sign with the services available, instructions for pickup, and hours of operation. Reserve parking spaces near the front door for curbside pickup only. Limit capacity to 50% of normal seating. Require 6 feet of separation between parties or groups at different tables or bar tops. Close waiting areas and ask customers to wait in cars for a call when their table is ready. Create or post communication materials for customers, including instructing customers to wear a face covering or mask until they are seated. Close self-serve food or drink options, such as buffets, salad bars, and drink stations. Require hosts and servers to wear face coverings. Food preparers should wear face coverings and gloves in the kitchen area when handling food. Install physical barriers such as sneeze guards and partitions at cash registers, bars, host stands, and other areas where maintaining physical distance of 6 feet is difficult. Limit number of employees in shared spaces. Provide physical guides such as tape on floors or sidewalks and signage on walls to ensure that customers remain at least 6 feet apart in any lines. And wherever you work, here are some guidelines and safety precautions for you to do your part in reducing the spread of COVID-19. Limit close contact with others by maintaining a distance of at least 6 feet when possible. Minimize handling of cash, credit cards, and mobile devices, and wash or sanitize your hands after handling. Practice routine cleaning and disinfection of frequently touched surfaces and tools. Wash your hands regularly with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. And be sure to follow these safety precautions. Wear face coverings or masks. Check for symptoms that often include fever or abnormal cough or shortness of breath. Stay home if you are sick or have been in close contact with someone who is sick. Report your diagnostic test results and exposures to your employer, and participate honestly and urgently in workplace safety training. For additional resources, visit Michigan.gov/MIOSHA.
So that's one of the many tools that you can find that we have available at COVID Workplace Safety, and I'll touch more on those in a few minutes. It's a great resource for every business that's out there to kind of take a look at some of the things that are required there, and it's a great tool. And there are additional regulations that you need to think about and be aware of that might be more restrictive depending on your region or your industry. And one of those, of course, is that we get questions about is that indoor service is restricted at bars that earn 70% or more of their gross receipts from alcohol sales that you'll need to be aware of. And then certainly depending on your regions, as you know, in the Upper Peninsula, Region 8 has had many businesses open for a much longer period than many of the lower Michigan regions. So a lot of you have been operating with certain restrictions for quite some time, but make sure you're following with those agencies that regulate you. Certainly in the workplace area, MIOSHA regulates just about every business in Michigan, so you'll want to make sure you're checking in with us, but also if you're in the bar or restaurant space, those agencies that regulate you, and then certainly Kevin Selmeyer, who I'll introduce right now, the fire marshal, is going to share with you some of their regulatory authority.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Kevin Selmeyer. I am the Michigan State Fire Marshal, and I have lead the Bureau of Fire Services. A few things that we wanted to talk about today is that college and university classrooms and dorms do fall under the Bureau of Fire Services.
All right. Sorry about the interruption, guys. It looks like the technology is not working in our favor today, and Kevin's having some trouble connecting. So, Sean, if maybe you could jump in and maybe walk through these slides while Kevin tries to get back on, that'd be great.
Absolutely. It wouldn't be a webinar without such an occasion. So I'm happy to jump in. I am not as good as Kevin, but I will do my best. But some of the information that Kevin was going to share with you is that certainly the Bureau of Fire Services has authority over college and university classrooms and dormitories. Some of the information he was going to share on the executive order is that the executive order allowed other types of venues to be used for classrooms to help allow colleges and universities expand where they can have students and function as classrooms, but they also have authority over places of public assemblage, and that's a very wonderful term that basically means anywhere people congregate. So restaurants, bars, movie theaters, concert venues, clubs, etc. have to abide by Bureau of Fire Services rules and regulations, which include certainly the number of people that can be in those locations. And they are working with their local fire departments and others across the state of Michigan to really help you understand how you can calculate capacity within the framework of the executive orders and maintain that social distancing. In our video, of course, we had restaurants and bars that were perfectly rectangle, right? So it makes it a little bit easier to figure that out. But we know, and everybody knows, that every location is going to be slightly different, and sort of calculating that is a bit challenging at times. So they have ways, and they're available to help you calculate that. And that if you're over capacity, they can certainly prohibit anyone else from entering the building. They have the authority potentially to temporarily close that venue, but those are not areas that we're trying to get to. It's really focused in on that education and support piece. And of course, working with local government and state partners, if necessary, to determine if any licensing action is warranted. And while Kevin had a couple of challenges connecting there, he does put his cell phone right on this slide. If you need help or want to discuss these issues further, you can certainly contact him there at that cell phone number listed, and he will work with you and your local fire departments or other authorities to work through these issues to make sure that you are getting the tools and resources and education you need to function appropriately as we battle to contain COVID. And with that, hopefully Kevin will be with us on the Q&A period, but we'll turn it over to our friend Barb Sebastian with the Liquor Control Commission.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with everybody. Really appreciate that. Wanted to let you know I'm with the Liquor Control Commission in the Enforcement Division, and the Liquor Commission generally is responsible for enforcing the liquor laws and rules in the state of Michigan, as well as the executive orders. We try to ensure that our licensees are compliant with all those things. We do check businesses, and we have been checking businesses since the COVID crisis began to make sure that people are in compliance. Our main goal typically is to educate, and that will be our main focus. However, in cases that are egregious, we will probably take action. Just to let you know, we also work with local police agencies, and we want to make sure that they work with us and make sure the businesses are in compliance. We give them funding for that purpose. We also work with licensees and try to do lots of education and training so that they are aware of what their responsibilities and requirements are. I would encourage all of you to go to our website, Michigan.gov/LCC. Lots of resources there. We have information about COVID. We have reopening resources, which include information about the executive order restrictions, as well as information about new permits and processes we've created during the COVID crisis to help businesses expand the area where they can operate, like expanded outdoor service areas and things like that that can increase your capacity a little bit. We also have laws and rules, frequently asked questions, all kinds of good stuff there. If you need particular assistance, you're welcome to contact me, and I've listed my email address up above. I'd be happy to answer questions for people or help you out. And I did want to stress that the Liquor Commission is very dedicated to working with businesses to make sure that they stay open, do it safely and legally. Unfortunately, we are all starting to learn that the bar scene is a great way for the COVID virus to be spread. A lot of that is due to human behavior, loud talking, people moving closer together, people dancing, people drinking alcohol, which can unfortunately affect judgment and lessen inhibitions. All those things kind of create the perfect storm, especially for this age group of 20 to 29. We all want to see the infection rate on that group decrease, well, all groups, but especially the young people, and there are ways to do that, as this webinar proves out. I did want to make sure that businesses know that they are required to have their customers and their employees wearing masks. However, it is your authority and your responsibility at times to ask patrons to remove the mask in order to make sure that they're of legal age or to make sure that they're not intoxicated. You do have that ability. I'd encourage you to use it when you need it. Those are important things. Dancing right now is prohibited in establishments, same with topless activity. So those things are not the types of entertainment that you can offer currently due to the executive orders. But like I said, we are here to help licensees. We get a lot of questions about the 70% requirement. That can be confusing for some. Just to let you know, the Liquor Commission is going by the common definition of gross receipts. These would be typically things that you report on a tax return that would include income from your business. Some lottery income may be claimable, but perhaps not all. If you have any questions about what might be claimable as gross receipts, we recommend you check with your CPA or bookkeeper, other professionals you're working with, and we're available for questions. Thank you again for allowing me to be here, and that's all I have for you right now.
Thank you, Barb. So those resources we've been talking about that are at your fingertips anytime you want them are at Michigan.gov COVID Workplace Safety. And at that site, we have posted MIOSHA created industry specific guidelines for every industry that has been named in an executive order. And that certainly includes bars, restaurants, and retail. And those would be in compliance with the executive orders as well as the CDC guidelines for those types of establishments. If you're not named, you would follow the general industry guidelines also posted. There are talkover presentations there. There are more videos like we showed you here for different types of industries. We have great reopening checklists and fact sheets that you can use to really get your understanding around the things that you should or could be doing in your workplace. We have posters there that you can use. And as an example, some of those masking requirement posters are there for certain types of industries. They have posters like the waiting area is closed poster here for those restaurant establishments, and there are others depending on your type of industry. We have some great social media tools there that you can use as well, and many of these items are in alternative languages too if you need those types of resources. You can always find more information at the Marquette County Health Department. They've been doing a great job up there on helping businesses in the community contain COVID, and they're continuing to do that, so make sure you check them out. Check out our COVID Workplace Safety site. Any updates that we're doing from a workplace safety standpoint are going to be at that site. We have a link there to the Michigan Economic Development Corporation's Pure Michigan Business Connect platform. They have a connection with businesses all over the state of Michigan that manufacture different types of PPE that you can connect with to get those things that you need, like face coverings, plastic barriers, sanitizer, etc. If you are one of those businesses creating or making those types of things, you can connect your business through that platform as well to sell to other Michigan businesses. For the health screening component I mentioned, every business in Michigan needs to be conducting a daily health screening that includes a questionnaire of symptoms of COVID. You can accomplish that by using the My Symptoms app. This is free. It was created by the Department of Health and Human Services along with the University of Michigan. As an employer, you just go to that link there and sign up for an employer account. You'll put in who you want reporting to go to and other things. There is a platform, a real-time platform opening up soon to better access the information that's in that app. You'll get an employer-specific number that you'll give to your employees. Then they can sign up for the app themselves, put in that number, it'll link directly with you, and then every day they fill out the questionnaire. There's a series of questions around COVID-related symptoms that has been updated to align with the CDC. If they flag for symptoms, they'll get an orange notice that will tell them to contact whomever you designate as well as their healthcare provider. And if they are good to go, they'll get a green flag saying that they do not have any apparent symptoms of COVID. So this is a great tool, free to help you comply with that health screening protocol. For some industries, if you're watching, manufacturing, meat packaging, and casinos, you also need to be doing an on-site temperature screen. For other industries, it's encouraged but not required. So the health screening app will help you comply with the health screening components. And then certainly, as I mentioned, check out that Michigan Safe Start site, as well as the Mask Up Michigan campaign. At that link there has posters and other tools that you can use as it relates to encouraging and supporting people wearing the face coverings to really help cut down that transmission of COVID. And the MIOSHA team, early in the crisis, created a wonderful tool that you should absolutely take advantage of for employers and employees with any questions regarding workplace safety and COVID at 855-SAFE-C19. That hotline goes directly into MIOSHA. The average wait time is about 15 seconds to get connected with a MIOSHA expert to run through your questions. The average call is about 4 to 5 minutes. As you can imagine, some of these are very complex issues. If you're an employer and you have questions about things that you could or should be doing in your workplace, call the hotline. If necessary, they can get you over to our wonderful consultation team. MIOSHA runs a very good consultation program that can do either on the phone or sometimes on site work with you as an employer to help you make sure that you're in compliance and putting things in the place that you need to. If you're an employee, similarly, they'll have those discussions with you and explain the regulations and requirements. And if necessary, they can get you over to the complaint side of the MIOSHA process. So as you're kind of working through the things that you could or should be doing in your workplace, do not be afraid to take advantage of this tool. It works very well and connects you with the experts that can help you answer the questions that you need. So I encourage you all to really take advantage of it. And with that, we will end the presentation portion and move into the question and answer portion. I see Kevin. Hopefully we can hear you now.
How about now? I know I didn't get out everything that I definitely wanted to share with everybody, but we're here, we're ready for questions, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today.
All right, thanks, Kevin. It wouldn't be a webinar, as I mentioned, without some technical glitches. So.
All right, well, hello everybody. My name is Erica, and I am going to help with the Q&A session as we wrap up this webinar. And just a reminder, if any of the attendees on have questions to submit, there is a Q&A tab. You can go ahead and put your questions in. Looks like at this point we only have one question, so it might be a quick Q&A for you today, Sean. The question we have asks, if a rider on a school bus tests positive, do all the other riders and the driver need to quarantine?
So again, that would be that question about close contact. Were you within 6 feet of each other for 15 minutes or more? Hopefully this is a school, so K through 12. Hopefully the school has some protocols in place to help identify where students were on that bus, maybe assign seating, who was around them. They should be having those windows cracked to help make sure that they're getting good fresh air ventilation into that space. And depending on how close, who is in proximity are the folks that they would probably want to talk to about potentially isolating or quarantining, depending on if that student had symptoms or otherwise. And, certainly everybody should be wearing those face coverings and those other things. So I hope that helps. And Erica, if we don't get any more questions, I didn't touch on like the fire drill components and things that Kevin's been mentioning all along. So we can run through questions, but if we don't have any, make sure we hit him on that topic before we get off.
Well, no others have come in, so Kevin, if we want to turn it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about fire drills for a moment. So currently, all colleges and universities are required to participate in 3 fire drills annually. There's a fire drill that's required in the fall for the dormitories. We're not talking about the classrooms, we're talking about the dormitories. So these dormitory fire drills, if you have students who are living in a dormitory, need to run drills. The first fall drill needs to be ran within 21 days of classes starting. The next fire drill is in what we would call the spring. A lot of the schools we know wait until the weather gets a lot better, so there are a lot of those are done in April and May, but the idea, and then if you have students living in the dorm over the course of the summer. We did have the fire drills are actually based on a calendar year and not based on a school year. So if you look back to when this COVID was all ramping up, a lot of the schools closed in March and a lot of schools did not get their spring fire drills in. We want to make sure though, you can make a note on your form that you send to the Bureau of Fire Services in January of 2021 that shares what you did in 2020. But if you have college students living in a dorm, You need to do a fire drill in each one of those dorms. And one of the things we want to remind you of is that most of the folks that are living in a dorm, this is something that's new. They're not living at home with their parents any longer. So we know that it's important. And through MI Prevention, which is an effort across the state on fire safety, for the last week on the Facebook page, we've been putting up stuff on fire and dorm safety. I'm actually going to do an interview here in a little bit this afternoon with a TV channel out of Kalamazoo. And one of the things that we run into and we see across the board is folks not understanding what they're supposed to do in a fire. So that's why these fire drills are so important.
All right.
It was going so well.
I know. We just can't win with technology today. So why don't you go ahead and close us out, Sean?
Okay, so we, I appreciate the time that everybody took to be with us today. I think it's important that we continue to have these conversations moving forward. We recognize, we understand that the Upper Peninsula in Region 8 has been open much longer than most of Lower Michigan. So you've been dealing with how to operate a little bit longer than everybody else. But as I mentioned at the outset, Marquette in particular and the UP as a whole saw a quick increase in COVID cases in the last few weeks, and you're trending back down to the low spot slowly but surely, but you're still in that medium to high risk range. So it's important that we don't allow ourselves to get complacent with COVID and that we suddenly see these blooms, because the governor has made it very clear, and that it's important that we are protecting our communities and each other, and that we are protecting Michiganders' lives. And COVID is still a very problematic risk for people of all age groups. Some age groups seem more than others, but all of us. So we really have to contain this COVID crisis to keep us moving forward, to keep our businesses open, to keep our economy moving. And as we start to bring students back to campus, that expands our population in those communities, and we need to prepare to deal with that, including, like I mentioned, those folks that might come to your establishment. If you know that Fridays at 9 your doors get full, how are you going to manage that? Making sure you're thinking through those next steps so that you're not the problem for your community, and that we're moving forward together with COVID. And again, help us push this message down and out, because you're choosing to watch us today and talk with us today, and at least one person submit those questions today. Make sure that this information is getting around your community, so that all of us are trying to control the things that we can, which are ourselves, and making sure that we're doing enough to keep the numbers low, to keep us moving forward, and to keep things open. I think, NMU has been a great university in the state of Michigan. Marquette's one of my favorite cities in the state of Michigan. I love it there, and I know that you guys are going to be working hard to do this right. Be the example. Help us all understand what we need to be doing and what we can be doing. And, I look forward to us progressing, and we're available if you'd like us to do more in Northern Michigan, in Marquette, or across the Upper Peninsula. Webinars, the silver lining of webinars is you can get a lot of places in a short amount of time, and we're happy to talk, as you can tell. But just make sure that we're all part of the solution, and that we're all doing our part to make sure that we get open and stay open as we return students to campus.